You're listening to the YWAM Nashville podcast. My name's Cody.
My name is Michael, and we'll be your hosts for this season. Welcome to the YWAM Nashville podcast, episode 0. This is going to be fantastic. So, the goal of this podcast and starting it is to take discipleship outside of YWAM itself and make it more accessible to the general public, as well as tell the happenings of YWAM Nashville specifically, and specifically what we're doing as a community and how people can get involved and what they might like to be a part of in general. So,
right on. So, my name's Cody. I'm co-hosting here with Michael. That other melodious voice you heard was Michael Lindberg. Or should we not say our last names? I don't know. Are we going to China anytime soon?
I don't think so.
These are the things you have to worry about. But yeah, I'm Cody. I'm from Missouri, and I've been here for almost a year now. But yeah, you want to introduce yourself since you're here?
I'm Michael, and I have been on staff for 5 years now, I think, just about. So,
right on. We got Michael Mack here.
Hey.
He's how long have you been on staff here?
About 10 years.
Wow. So he's the, what's the word?
Bass director?
Well, yeah, I was going to say that, but I was going to say something like he's the guy who's been here the longest.
The longest tenured.
Yeah, he's got the longest
continuously.
But yeah. Oh, should I not play with the cord?
So he's married and just has 4th kid?
Yes. A year ago.
A year ago. Well, yeah, just had a year ago.
Yeah.
He's a fantastic musician and worship leader.
Oh, I appreciate that.
And everybody thinks he's great. He's like one of the most cool relational people. I don't know how he does it. Tell us your secrets.
Well, I was born this way.
Oh, man. But, yeah, so he's the bass director, and he's going to give us a little YWAM history. So first, I think we're going to do just kind of general YWAM and what it's all about. So can you tell us how YWAM started and just kind of generally what it's all about?
Yeah, well, I think it's probably important to first even talk about the name YWAM. So it's a weirdly
point, Mr. Bass Director, sir.
It's a weirdly pronounced acronym, actually. YWAM, pronounced YWAM. So that stands for Youth with a Mission. YWAM was actually a dream of a man named Loren Cunningham who was 20 years old, and this was in 1956.
Sure about that?
1956.
Gotcha.
Imagine that. What was going on in 1956?
I don't know. I still had like 42 years before I was on the scene or something.
I didn't know if either of you guys were history buffs.
Oh, okay.
Some people are like, 1956, that's when World War 17
I think people had like afros and there was like weird funk music or something going on. I don't know. This from a millennial.
That's the most millennial thing I've heard all day.
I mean, I think people have always had afros, so you're probably safe with that one.
I feel like Beach Boys was the thing.
Yeah, I think so. But who knows? Anyways, so Loren Cunningham, the founder of Youth with a Mission, was 20 years old, and he was in the Bahamas. And he was on a mission trip, and he was intending to go speak to an audience of what he thought to be about 20 people. And he knelt down to pray and ask God, what do you want me to speak to these 20 people? And as he knelt to pray, on the wall in front of him was just a blank wall, but it came to him in a vision, dream vision, whatever you want to call it, as he was looking at the wall, that he saw waves of young people crashing on the shores of all the continents of the world. And so that began it all. And so 4 years later, in 1960, is when actually YWAM was officially established. After going through a process, Lauren Cunningham was a part of the Assemblies of God church at that time. And his father was a prominent minister in the Assemblies of God and was known as Mr. Missions. And Lauren himself was involved with youth ministry within the Assemblies of God. And so he brought his idea, his vision, and it was intending for it to be a part of the Assemblies of God. But when he presented his vision at the time, it was rather unheard of for young people to be missionaries. In that day and age, you went to college and then you went to seminary, grad school, and maybe 6 years later, after going through lots of education, you would then be tagged by whatever denomination you were as an official missionary, and you could go on your way. And so this was kind of a new deal for young people to go and do missions.
So basically, what does that look like now?
So now you could say that YWAM is one of the largest mission organizations in the world today. We have, I can't even remember how many locations actually, but well over 1,000. And they're literally on every continent in most nations. Some nations have multiple locations, like the United States of America. I can't remember how many there are, but almost in every state, I would say. Maybe not almost every state, but plenty. Some states have 2 or 3, so it's kind of spread out. But there's lots of different locations, and often those locations are referred to as bases. And I think at some point they were trying to get away from the terminology of base because it sounds quite military-esque.
Indeed.
And
I kinda like that one.
And I think they moved to, with the establishment of, one of the big things in YWAM as well is the University of the Nations. And that was established in 1977. So a part of the history, this will be a good pointer, is that so once the vision had come into place, it was basically just Lauren Cunningham and his wife, Darlene, and they were inviting young people to come on mission trips. And so they would take young people, and they started out in the islands in the Pacific, and they were receiving hundreds of young people per summer. And so after a few summers of having young people come, and they didn't have much training to go out and just preach the gospel to the islands, they recognized, young people, there are sometimes issues with young people where they need a little bit more training and a little bit more discipleship. So they started a school of evangelism. And the first ever school of evangelism was in 1969. And so they did that for a few years, and they called it this School of Evangelism. And after a few years of training people in evangelism, they realized, we need to get even more basic. Some people don't have a basic foundation in Christianity and discipleship, so we need to start something more basic. And so they developed a program called the Discipleship Training School. And so now, if anyone wants to come into YWAM, if anyone wants to be a part of YWAM, they have to go through a 5 to 6 month training of discipleship and just getting the same basic understanding. And the point of that was to make sure that everyone was on the same page and going out with the same values, with the same mission. I had a moment to be able to look up on ywam.org and actually scope out some stats. So I'm just going to read that off. It says, Youth with a Mission is a truly global movement. We have over 1,100 locations in over 180 nations, and new teams are constantly being pioneered. Our centers reflect the culture they are in, and they often have multicultural staff. Some YWAM centers are large, accommodating over 100 staff serving full-time in a variety of activities. Others are small, with only a handful of people focused on a specific ministry. YWAM teams can be found in idyllic rural settings and urban centers. occupying all sorts of buildings, including castles, apartments, mud huts, and tents. Youth with a Mission is a global movement of Christians from many cultures, age groups, and Christian traditions dedicated to serving Jesus throughout the world, also known as YWAM, YWAM, pronounced Y, WAM. We unite in a common purpose to know God and to make him known. So those were a couple statements from the official page, ywam.org.
It's official. It's very official. Okay. So can you tell us a bit about our base specifically and like our unique values and cultures and things?
Okay. So YWAM Nashville was, I don't know if this is like 100% truth or if it's rumor. So I wasn't
mere
here
legend.
from the beginning. It could be mere legend. But what I've heard is that like the very beginning of YWAM Nashville was when Lauren Cunningham himself, the founder, was in Nashville speaking at a church, and he had some friends with him. And I don't know if there had been like talks before this happened, but from the stage at Christ Church in Nashville, he announced that this man, Steve Tackett, was the new director of YWAM Nashville. And up until that point, as far as I know, YWAM Nashville didn't exist. And so Lauren Cunningham, being the visionary that he is, basically was like spoke this into existence in front of a large group of people, and that was the get-go, the beginning of it. And it was 1992 when a group of people from Arkansas and a group of people from Atlanta, Georgia came together to form YWAM Nashville. And they rented a house in Nashville, and from the garage they had their offices, and from the inside of the house they ran a discipleship training school. And they outgrew that house really quickly, and so the next year, next season even, they had rented out an Episcopal campground, and we're using a campground for the next couple years. And then in 1994, Ruby Tackett, the wife of Steve Tackett, the original bass director, had a dream about a property as they were looking around for different properties, trying to find YWAM Nashville a permanent home. And they heard about this property in Adams, Tennessee, which is about an hour outside of Nashville, 45 minutes to an hour. And as they pulled up onto the property to check it out, Ruby Tackett was just exclaimed, "This is the place from my dream last night." And it was pretty clear to them that this was the place.
Wow.
God gave her a dream about it the night before, and they bought the property, and here we are. Fast forward.
It's pretty bizarre.
Yeah. And so YWAM Nashville grew like wildfire, and by the early 2000s there was somewhere around 100 staff, and they were having DTS's schools of about 75 to 100 students.
Wow.
A quarter. And so that's quite a bit of people coming through this place. So it was exciting, and a lot of action was happening. And I think that had to do with the personality of the original director. Steve Tackett was just a really charismatic pioneer. Charismatic in the sense that he was like excitable and lively, and was just an amazing recruiter. And so a few years into it, he had recruited some really amazing leaders.
We don't even have enough rooms here for hundreds of people. What did that look like?
Well, they had actually bought multiple other properties outside of the main campus here. So we owned homes all around Adams, actually.
Wow.
And in the early, maybe 2008-ish, we were praying about moving everything back into Nashville. And so they had all the land sectioned off beyond the main campus, and were selling lots one by one. And they only sold one lot with a trailer on it, and for some reason weren't able to sell anything. And I think there was a little bit of a economic crisis in 2008 that probably helped to shut that down. But I think in the midst of it, the leaders at that point were asking God, "Do you want us to move into Nashville?" And that was basically his answer. "No, you're going to stay here." And they ran it by, of course, some other YWAM leaders, YWAM elders, that basically we're just like, God's given you this place. Why don't you just stick with this place? And it's an amazing place out in the middle of nowhere. Adams, Tennessee is mostly farmland, tobacco
Speaking
farmland.
of rural.
Rural. Yeah, so it's along the Red River, which is beautiful. We have lots of woods. We have cliffs. We have lots of deer. We have ponds. We have fields. It's actually a beautiful place, and I think distinctly YWAM Nashville, which is in Adams, Tennessee, is kind of a set-apart place. And it's unique in the sense that a lot of YWAM locations are in cities. Other YWAM locations, like it said, are in rural areas with mud huts or something. But we don't have mud huts. We have pretty nice housing.
We don't have mud huts yet.
But we are kind of on the outskirts, and I think God has kind of set us apart like that so that people can come away and have just pure intimacy with him in the midst of being discipled rather than being distracted in the city without everything that can come with that. So it's pretty secluded, but it's beautiful as well. So a lot of people enjoy the beauty that we have, the nature that's all around. So
yeah, it's like living in a park.
Yeah.
So why don't we just call it YWAM Adams then?
Well, because a lot of our DNA comes from Nashville, the city of Nashville, the heart of Nashville. Nashville is known as Music City, and that's just a part of our roots that I don't think we can escape. And also beyond that, in our not so recent history, Nashville was known as a place of revival, and we are on the banks of the Red River, and there was another revival that happened about 20 miles from here upstream called the Red River Revival, which then birthed the Second Great Awakening. So something that God has shown me is that we're literally between two hubs of revival and awakening, and that's something that YWAM Nashville is supposed to be marked by, is awakening and revival. And so that's something that we are continually contending for. But we also are marked by music. And not just music, but music unto the Lord, worship, artistic expression unto God. And so that's just something that we carry as a high value, is worship, and the emphasis specifically on music and offering that to the Lord. Another thing I think that we are marked by, and I think a lot of these markings come from the things that the people who are a part of YWAM Nashville carry. So we have quite a few people that have just a heart for the unreached in the world, those who have never had an opportunity to hear the gospel. So a lot of our intercession times are focused on unreached people groups. And we, through the years, have had a school called the School of Strategic Missions, which is focused on unreached people groups. Part of the direction that I feel like the Lord has given me was because of when I first stepped in as the base director, everyone was asking me, what's your vision? What's your vision? What's your vision? And I was like, I don't know. I didn't necessarily put myself in this position because it was a desirous position. It was just something that I felt like God was leading us into, and had to kind of really make it known to us that this is what we were supposed to do. So I didn't have this is my vision, everybody come and serve the vision of Michael McClanahan. It was something that as I was asking the Lord, God, what's your vision? What's your vision? What do I tell the people that are asking me what the vision of YWAM Nashville is? And he said that people are more important than vision. Gather the right people and you will gain the right vision. And so I think a lot of our vision is actually built upon the things that the individuals that are here carry. And so something that we carry is family. We actually have a lot of families with a lot of kids. And so that's one of our values is, and that's one of the YWAM foundational values overall internationally. But it's something that I think that we carry more specifically than some other locations, is just this family atmosphere. And it's because we're built of lots of families. We have young singles. We have old people. I won't.
Go old people. Yeah.
I was going to qualify that, but we have old people. We have young people. I'll just leave it at that.
Do you have anything else that you want to just throw in there?
Well, in the beginning stages when we were basically re-pioneering YWAM Nashville 3 years ago, stepping in as I was praying, God, what do you want to do? Well, God, what do you want to do? I felt like he kept saying, hit the reset button. And I was like, what does that mean? Where, and I was imagining like this huge red button, that had maybe some case around it that you were supposed to open the case and like hit the button. But I, like unless God specified, like I was like, where is this reset button? How do I hit this reset button? And one of the things about YWAM is that Lauren Cunningham has stated that YWAM is an apostolic movement. And as a leader, I'm like, okay, this is what we're supposed to be, as an apostolic movement. I was like, what does that mean? Because those are kind of obscure terms in my mind. Maybe someone else would be like, well, that means blah, blah, blah. But for me, I was like, I have no idea what it means to be an apostolic movement. So I was just praying and asking God, and God, what does it mean to be apostolic? What does it mean to be a movement? And God gave me some insights, and, there's practical insight as well. But basically, to be apostolic, apostle is a nautical term, meaning term of the sea.
I didn't know that.
And military. So the apostles would be sent in when one nation would take over another nation. They would send in the apostles to the nation that was just taken over to establish the culture of the kingdom of the nation that took the other kingdom over. So they would send in apostles to say, now go and culture these people in our ways. And so I was about to bring this message to our staff at the time, and I was walking into one of our buildings ready to give this message, and the Lord spoke to me and said, hit the reset button today. And I was like, what? And God said, hit the reset button today. Tell everyone to go home. And I said, okay, tell everybody to go home. And then he further and said, until they have gained, till they've come away with an intimacy with me and gained the apostolic calling on their life as a part of YWAM Nashville, which he meant that the thing that they are carrying of the culture of heaven that he wants to establish here on earth. What are you carrying? What's the thing that God has created you for and established his kingdom in you that you can bring to the world, to YWAM Nashville and to the world eventually? And so intimacy with God is like a huge thing as a part of Nashville, but I think a part of YWAM as well. So a couple just phrases that I just wanted to throw out there. Well, one of the things in the midst of the season where I told everybody to go home and spend time with the Lord in intimacy till you gain the apostolic calling on God on your life. One of the things that he spoke to me was to let Hebrews 12 be our blueprint in moving forward. And Hebrews 12 is thick with goodness. And it starts out talking about since we're surrounded by so great a cloud of witnesses. And so God wanted, I think, in that phrase for me to understand some of the history of YWAM Nashville and those who preceded me in leadership and just some of the things that preceded this season of YWAM Nashville. And then it says, fixing our eyes on him, the author and finisher of our faith. But as we do that, the things that would so easily entangle us fall to the wayside. So I feel like God was centering in on purity and getting rid of things that were hindering us in our walk or our run towards him. And then there was things about correcting mindsets and bringing things back into alignment and unity. But the final thing is to boldly pursue God. And there's an invitation in Hebrews 12 for the people of God to come up onto the mountain and to freshly hear his voice. And originally it talks about the Hebrews rejected that invitation from God and told Moses to go up on the mountain for them and to hear his voice for all the people. But that's not like God's original intention. His original intention was to have intimate relationship with everyone. And so that, I feel like, is another part of YWAM Nashville, is just this, like, we have to start from a place of intimacy and like individual relationship with him, or the corporate, the bigger, the greater won't ever happen. It won't work. And a phrase that the Lord gave to me in the midst of that, which has been added onto a little bit as we found other things that we felt like God wanted to highlight. But this is like just a phrase that the Lord gave me. Everything we do must be born in intimacy, filled with the Spirit, stained with worship, bathed in prayer, founded on the Word, consumed with fiery passion, secure in identity, moving as a loving family, building the kingdom, preaching the gospel, releasing His glory, and awakening the nations to love. And so those things kind of build on each other and end up. So everything must be born in intimacy. That's the start. And then the finish is awakening the nations to love. So that's like the beginning as an individual, and the corporate is like what we're going after is awakening the nations to who God is. And then I have a little mission statement. I'll read that out just so it kind of describes who we are, what we're doing, what vision, what mission, how we're doing it, the strategy. So YWAM Nashville is an apostolic missionary discipleship movement that passionately pursues God and all people. Fully alive, we reach and awaken the world that He loves through discipleship, training, and mobilization. And so that was one of the things. You had a question earlier, like what are the three things that YWAM is kind of known for? And so I think they call it somewhere the 3 prongs. And so the first prong is evangelism. And that's a part of like the YWAM motto, to know God and to make Him known. And it's a natural like consequence of knowing Him. Once you know Him, you can't help but want others to know about Him. And so that's evangelism. And the second prong is training. And so that's why I think I highlighted the discipleship training school. And we do other schools beyond the discipleship training school we call secondary schools. So we have a school of worship, a school of strategic missions, sending people long-term. We have a school, a Bible core course, which teaches people the core of the Bible. We have right now we're running a staff and leadership training. So it's giving our young new staff coming on some leadership principles and some training. The third prong is mercy ministries, and that's just really means just meeting the needs of the people on a practical level. A lot of times when you meet people's practical need, it opens up the door to reveal to them that they have spiritual needs. So a lot of times if you hand somebody some food, they're like, oh, now I want to hear what you have to say. What's your life all about? And you can present to them the good news of Jesus. So those are the things that YWAM and YWAM Nashville are marked by, really.
Well, thanks, Michael Mack. It's great to have you here.
It's good to be here. It's
Thanks.
Great to be here.
Oh, thanks for taking time to sit with us through our introductory episode and all the awkwardness and retakes we've had to do.
I absolutely love it, and I love you guys.
Thanks, bro.
So that probably won't be the last time that we have you on here, and maybe we'll delve into breaking some of those different value things down in the future. So I'm sure we will hear your lovely voice again. Well, we'll hear your lovely voice all the time, but
Yes.
they won't.
By the way, delve is such a good word.
Delve.
It is.
That's a good word.
Makes me think of Lord of the Rings, as do many things.
Rightly so.
Lord of the Rings is copyrighted material brought to you by Warner Brothers. Blah, 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 blah.
Is it actually brought to you by Warner Brothers?
I don't know. I'm just saying. It's probably like legendary. I don't know. Just drop as many names as possible.
Is there anything else that we should say about YWAM or YWAM Nashville?
I feel like a lot of things will get translated, like, as we're talking to different people and things, but I felt like that pretty much covered, like, the kind of general.
So something else we'll be doing kind of regularly in this podcast, which we're not, well, I don't know. We probably won't do in this episode, but one of the things that we'll be doing is just sharing.
Freestyle rapping.
Yeah, freestyle rapping.
I'll lay down the beat and you guys rap. Ready?
No, it's going to be the same sentence over and over.
Ah. Yeah.
I've got a cat.
Just
She's
that
pretty
opening
fat.
line.
With the PH.
Where did Peter hear?
I know. But yeah, we'll be also updating you with just news and general happenings from like the base and what we got going on here, but also just greater YWAM church in general, the world, basically anything that like pertains to us and you and Jesus. And so yeah.
Which is everything.
Oh,
Suckers.
we're gonna be here for a while.
But we're really excited about the things that the Lord has been like telling us to bring into this and different ideas that we're going to incorporate with this podcast. So hopefully this wasn't too tedious to listen to or anything. Let us know if you have any thoughts or ideas.
So yeah, so if you want to reach out to us, let us know what you think or ask any other questions or anything. You can reach us at podcast@ywamnashville.org
Or if
sometime
you have
in the near future.
just basic informational questions about Youth with a Mission Nashville, you can send those to info@ywamnashville.org.
This is why we brought the bass director on.
Yeah.
I can make hand fart noises.
Do it. You should play.
Please do.
Let's see. Let me get a good beat going.
I don't understand.
Perfect.
That's a talent. Don't bury it.
This is the part where you should all be impressed. This is why we pay you the big bucks.
Yes, this is why.
Well, that's something we should
Michael
post.
did mention my musical talent, and that's probably the peak.
The pinnacle.
Well, this has been YWAM Nashville podcast episode numero zero, maybe. We're not sure yet.
Yeah, something like that.
Zoomero.
Thanks for joining us. Hopefully you enjoyed it, and we'll see you in a week.
Yep. Peace out.
Peace and love.
Ciao for now.